This wasn't random.
The concept. Have you ever had this strange realization? You look back at several completely different moments in your life, and suddenly they all make sense at the same time. The way a simple message ruined your mood. Why certain people drain you faster than others. Why some comments stay in your head for hours. Why you sometimes shut down, and other times explain far too much. At first, these moments look unrelated. Different days, different people, different situations. But sometimes they are not separate problems at all. Sometimes they are all coming from one pattern you didn't know was running. And once you see it, many things start making sense very quickly. When reactions look random, most people experience emotional reactions as isolated events. You feel bad after a conversation. You assume the conversation caused it. You panic in a certain situation. You assume the situation explains everything. You feel guilty about something small. You assume you're simply too sensitive. But the mind usually looks for explanations too close to the surface. Because what you see is only the final moment, the visible reaction. And that reaction may have started much earlier. The hidden structure. Imagine a delayed reply. On paper, it's a small thing, but your mind begins scanning. Are they upset? Why do I feel tense? The visible trigger is tiny, but the reaction feels large, and that is usually the clue. Because the reaction may not belong only to that message. It may belong to everything that message activates underneath it. The pattern beneath the moments. This is why different situations can produce the same emotional result. A comment from a colleague, a silence from a partner, a change in tone from a friend. 3 different situations, but inside you, the same sequence happens. First tension, then scanning, then overthinking, then exhaustion, then confusion about why something so small felt so big. If the sequence repeats often enough, it probably isn't random. It's procedural, a pattern running. A simple example. Imagine someone who learned early that closeness was unstable. Maybe affection appeared, and then disappeared. Maybe warmth came with pressure. Maybe connection always contained uncertainty. Later in life, something strange can happen. Stable relationships feel hard to read, but inconsistent ones feel intense. Mixed signals become fascinating. Emotional confusion starts feeling important. From the outside, it looks like attraction. But sometimes it's something else. Recognition. Your system already knows how to operate in instability. Not happily, but fluently. Another example. Or imagine a different pattern. Suppose someone learned early that their value came from being useful, from keeping other people comfortable, for example. As an adult, many reactions begin orbiting around that rule. You feel guilty when someone is disappointed, even if you did nothing wrong. You say yes when you want to say no. And rest can feel strangely undeserved. From the outside, these look like separate personality traits, but they all come from the same internal rule. Keep the environment smooth. Why this realization feels strange? The mind prefers fragmentation. It is comforting to believe each problem is temporary. That conversation was weird, that person is difficult, that day was stressful. But when one pattern explains many reactions, something changes. Your emotional life suddenly becomes more coherent. And sometimes that coherence is uncomfortable, because it suggests history, not randomness. The moment things start clicking. Usually the realization doesn't arrive slowly. It arrives like this. You notice that completely different situations leave you with the same emotional aftermath, the same tension, the same guilt. the same mental noise, the same exhaustion. Different stories, same ending. That's when the pattern becomes visible. The room with many doors. Imagine a room. Different people enter it through different doors. A partner enters through uncertainty. A colleague enters through subtle criticism. A friend enters through emotional demand. 3 different doors. But once inside the room, the same reactions begin. Scanning, self-doubt, over-explaining, fatigue. Why? Because the room was already built. When attraction is also pattern. Sometimes the pattern does not only explain pain, it explains attraction. Why certain people feel unusually compelling. Why emotional instability can feel intense. Why the mind keeps returning to situations that produce very little peace. Sometimes what we call chemistry is actually familiarity. The system recognizes a structure it already understands. And familiarity can easily be mistaken for significance. The mirror moment. This is usually the moment when memory starts reorganizing itself. You remember the conversation you replayed for days, the apology you gave without knowing why, the strange relief when someone finally responded after keeping you uncertain, the way you became helpful before anyone asked, the way calm environments sometimes felt oddly unfamiliar. Those moments were never random. They were data points. What overthinking sometimes is. Many people call this overthinking, but sometimes it isn't. Sometimes it's pattern recognition without language. The system is trying to understand something that has been repeating. But until the pattern becomes visible, every reaction feels like a new mystery. The pattern was always there. Once the pattern appears, something strange happens. The past starts making more sense. Not because new events happened, but because the old ones suddenly belong to the same structure. What looked like chaos begins revealing design. And that design may have been shaping more than reactions. It may have been shaping who feels familiar, which environments feel normal, which relationships feel intense, and which roles feel comfortable. Final reflection. That's why moments of insight can feel so abrupt. It's not that 5 different things suddenly became clear. It's that 5 different things were always part of the same pattern. Once you see the pattern, the reactions stop looking random. And then a deeper question appears, not, why did I react like that? But, what built this pattern deeply enough to explain so much? Because once everything clicks, it becomes impossible to pretend the pieces were never connected. And from that point forward, the real mystery is no longer the reactions themselves. It's the pattern that has been quietly organizing them all along.
I'm Oliver, and now you know why this happens. Or at least a part of it.